Happy Wednesday. If you are under $500,000 in revenue, this problem that I'm going to talk about today most likely is not your problem yet. So you may just want to save this video and come back to it when you're feeling this when you get to 500. Now, if you're around that 800,000 in revenue, here's what I know for a fact. More effort is no longer the lever that you want to pull in business. So there are different constraints at every revenue level, right? At 300,000, you are focused on growth. That is your constraint. You're like, okay, how do I grow to that next level of revenue? But at 800,000, what happens is owner dependency becomes your constraint, right? All of that effort that you have put into growing your business, that's your constraint at 800,000. And this live today is going to talk about the transition between the growth phase and the scale phase in business. So, hey, I'm Salen, a scale and systems strategist, and I help women entrepreneurs integrate the 4 core pillars that are required for sustainable scale past $1 million. So, I am going to share this on Facebook. As you're coming on today, I want you to let me know if you're part of the 2% yet. Have you hit $1 million in revenue? Be like, heck yeah, in the comments. Or are you still working your way to $1 million? I'm going to share this inside of my group. Let's see here. Okay. Okay. So let's chat about the constraints at $800,000. Now, here's the thing that I see so many women struggle with is you think logically in your head that if you stay closer to your business at 800,000, then the quality of your client delivery will stay high. You may use terms like, I'm a perfectionist, right? And I have to stay on top of my team in order to keep the client delivery at my perfection level. Maybe you're fixing your team's work before it goes to a client, right? This is probably the biggest myth in scaling a business, right? Because what you've always done to get to 800 or a million is you have kept the business super tight, super controlled, right? You're on top of everything. You look at client delivery, you look at emails, you look at every single thing that goes through. You're looking at team schedules, you're looking at your numbers and all of these different things. And so it protected the brand that you've built, right? You are successful because you have built a brand that has a high client delivery standard. And so you've always felt like, okay, if I keep the business tight and very connected to me, and I stay very connected to this business, then it's going to protect my brand and it's going to create trust. And then more clients are going to come to me. This is what the majority, 99% of women think, right? But if proximity, so if you being close to the business is what protects your revenue, then your growth is always going to require more of you. This is not scale. This is owner dependency. Now, that may be a new phrase for you because you're like, what do you mean by owner dependency? We're going to get into that, so stay tuned. If you're curious, comment me and let me know. Tell me more, like, what do you mean by owner dependency? Okay, so let me give you a little bit about, let me give you an analogy, right? So let's say that you want to get water out of the ground, right? So effort based scaling is like being in the old days and having to manually pump the water out of the ground. Like back in the day, if you wanted water out of the ground to fill a bucket, then you had to go to the well pump and you had to pump it manually, manually, manually. You want more water, you got to keep pushing. That is what effort based scaling is, right? It's you having to push that level, push that lever, push that lever. And you can literally fill as many buckets as you want. So you can grow your business as big as you want, but you can never leave. That means there's no 30-day epic vacations wherever. I took my first one here to sunny South Florida when I had a business back in Massachusetts. I took another one to Australia for 5 weeks, right? These are the kind of things that you're going to struggle, right? It's that I can't go to an event where I can't bring my cell phone because what if someone needs me? I can't go on vacation and leave my laptop behind. Has anyone seen that meme or that gif where the guy is literally sitting in the ocean, like supposed to be enjoying, but he has his laptop propped on a rock and he's like typing away while he's sitting in the ocean? That is not freedom, or at least that's not freedom in my world and the women that I work with. Freedom for us is leaving the laptop at home, going on vacation, and knowing that the business is going to be okay while you're gone. Okay. So let's break down why effort based growth plan does not work, right? So effort increases your output, right? So your effort, you're working, you're redoing schedules, you're fixing things, you are, answering calls, doing sales calls, you are, keeping an eye on your team, you're making sure they're answering the phone right, like just everything all day long, all day long, all day long, right? It's all you. And if you know what this feels like, for me, freedom started at 5 p.m. That was freedom from my team. Like asking me a million questions all day long or me having to fix things all day long. Because at 5 p.m., the night person would take the phones, my team would go home, and that's when I could throw off my suit jacket, kick off my heels, and actually get that working on the business work done, that strategic planning, right? That vision casting, that budgeting, all of that kind of stuff. That's when I could get that work done after 5 p.m. However, when you integrate structure and the right structure to match the vision that you have for your life in the back of your head, that you're like, heck yeah, that's what I want. That is what reduces the reliance on you as an owner. And that's where that owner dependency goes down, right? The right structure integrated into your business that matches and is going to support the lifestyle that you went into business for is going to reduce owner dependency. The business will no longer require you to be in the daily operations 80% of your day, right? That sounds amazing. So, how do we make that happen? So, let's talk about the two phases. So the growth phase is where I see women pretty much getting up to like that 750, 800 mark in business, right? So most women are in the growth building revenue phase until about 750-ish in revenue. And then what starts to happen is they approach a million, they're starting to think, okay, I'm getting to the scale phase in business. This is where things are going to get easier. The daily operations isn't going to require me to keep that fine tuning every single day. And so that's that transition. If that's you, say, yep, that's me in the comments. So let me give you some examples, right? So your revenue, now, if you're in this transition, here's some examples. So your revenue is rising, but your calendar of appointments, meetings, to-dos is still packed. That is a clear sign you are in a scale transition. Now, here's another one, your final approval on key communications. So let's say that you have to approve things that go out to the team, go out to clients, go to PR, go to marketing, advertising, all of those things. If you're the person who has to proofread it, make sure it's perfect, and then give your approval, you are definitely in a scale transition. Now, let's talk about the third one. This one is so huge, right? And this is one of the easiest ones to get out of. So you have a problem within your team, right? And what happens is your team escalates to you to fix it, right? So maybe you have two team members that can't figure out their schedule and who's going to work. Maybe you have two team members that are working on a project and they can't come to a decision on how to get it done. Maybe you have two team members that are trying to deliver a solution for the client and they're bickering about what is the best option. And what happens in all of those situations is they come to you and say, here's the problem, and they wait for you to fix it. That is a clear sign that you are in a scale transition, okay? Now, another one, I want to make sure we're going through these to make sure that you're understanding and that you're seeing, you're identifying like, yeah, that's me, that's me, that's me, right? So the decisions default to you. So how many times do you get an email from a client who says, I have an issue with your team member and I need you to fix it, right? Or I have an issue and I need you to fix it. Or a team member says, I have an issue and I need you to fix it. Or a vendor says, we have an issue and I need you to fix it. If decisions and issues rely on you to be fixed, then you are definitely in a scale transition, okay? And then the last one, which you may think this is always going to be on your plate, but I can tell you once you get through the scale transition, this is no longer going to be on your plate, is company forecasting. Let me give you an example. So earlier in my first business, right, it was me and then it was basically everyone else in my office and then my caregivers, right? I managed everyone in the office. But what I did was I added 3 directors into my business, right? So it was me, 3 directors. We had client care, human resources, and finance. And then it was the rest of the team. And then the caregivers were managed under that, right? Here's the thing. When it was just me and all of the team members, I did all of the forecasting for the business. I did the sales planning, the hiring planning, I did the financial planning, I did all the planning because I thought it was my job, right? I thought like, who else is going to do it? Isn't it my job? Like all the gurus talk about how you have to do the strategic vision for the business and blah, 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 blah. Yeah, you don't have to. What you need is the right people in the right roles. So what I would do is when I had those 3 directors under me, they forecasted their departments and then they brought me their plans. And then we looked at them as a group and to the company. And what I really did as the owner was I had the big picture for the vision. You know, where are we going in a year, 5 years, you know, those kinds of levels. And then they brought me their department's vision and forecasting, and we meshed it all together. Now, this is a clear sign that you're in a scale transition. If you're doing all of the forecasting for your entire company, for every department, you're definitely in a scale transition. Now, in order for you to get to the level with the 3 directors and all of that, you have to have structure in your business because your team needs to know what the big vision is that they're going to and how their team fits into it. Make sense? Makes sense. Okay. If your business only works because you are in the day to day watching it, you don't yet own a scalable business model. Now, I know this sounds really hard to digest because you're like, what do you mean I've been growing? Yes, your revenue is growing. But here's the thing, your revenue should be going up. Okay, so let's do it this way. What a scalable business looks like is this. Your revenue goes up and the owner requirements go down. These should be getting farther apart. When I made these shifts in my franchise business, I went from $1 million in revenue working 80-hour weeks, okay, to more than tripling that revenue and reducing my hours to 16 a week. The more our revenue grew, the less I worked. That is true sustainable scale. Understand? Okay. So let's go on here. So let's just kind of recap and then make sure that you understand, and then we're going to close. So the growth phase, right? So the growth phase is kind of over here at the bottom. This is where your revenue going up and that owner operator, like your proximity to the business is like, you're in it all day, every day, right? Like everything relies on you. It's like business, you, and you guys are glued together. Now, the transition phase is where we work together over 12 months to get you from working in the business all day to transitioning and testing what we've kind of integrated over here. So we're in this transition phase over to you working on the business. So it's a 3-phase program over a 12-month period based on the 4 pillars, because this is where true scale phase over here happens. This is where your business is literally created for it to run without you in the daily operations. This is where your team is handling issues without even you knowing there was an issue. This is where your clients are getting the most amazing service and you're just hearing the testimonials and it doesn't have to do with you. And you think to yourself, how is this even possible? Believe me, it is. So this is where we introduce decision filters, right? This is so huge. Your team knows a decision has to be made. And then do you remember like in the old days, like the phone chart, it's like, if this happens, do this. If this happens, do this. That's a decision filter, right? There's defined job ownership, right? So someone comes into your business, we use the 3-part hiring framework that I teach, and you have the right person in the right seat and they own their job. They're not relying on someone else to fix it or do it for them, right? Huge shift. There's written standards in the business. This is where it all starts in that first pillar, structure. Because when we clarify the structure, your team knows what are the standards in our business. What is that minimum standard, delivery that we're always going to deliver to a client, right? There's also escalation clarity, right? So if there's a mistake that happens with one of my caregivers back in the day, it doesn't escalate immediately to me. No, it would escalate to the next person in line. And I sometimes never even heard about it, right? Sometimes my team would say, hey, FYI, we had this issue. This is how we fixed it, and this is the result, right? That was kind of early stage in our transition from me being in the business to on the business. But then it got to the point where I didn't even know all the little things that went on all day long because it was none of my business. It was their business. My job was big vision planning for this business. Where were we going, right? And then the last thing is infrastructure that protects quality. So if you identify as a perfectionist, if you tend to have control issues, it is not because you love those terms. It is because your back end infrastructure is chaotic and you're afraid to let anyone see what's going on behind the scenes. And so you strive for perfection. You remain in control and have a finger on everything. So that way nothing falls apart and no one knows that things are a hot mess behind the scenes, right? So when you get these things in place at this level, your job as the owner is no longer to increase the effort. We're no longer manually pumping that water well. It's to design the structure. So I transitioned in 2010. That was the start of my transition. It took me 2 long years, which I know now was way too long. But in 2012, I left my business for 30 days straight and I came down here to sunny South Florida and the business didn't fall apart. I wasn't attached to my laptop and I wasn't on my cell phone all day long because I had built that back-end infrastructure. My job was no longer the day-to-day operations. My job was to turn what I had built into a well-oiled money-making machine. And when I sold that business in 2017, I said to the new owner, don't touch anything. You have 17 people in the office and 150 people in the field, and they are just producing money. Just come in here, create the vision for the business, and take the money and pay off the loan that you bought the business from me from, right? I had built a money-making machine that they literally could have just come in and printed money, okay? Because that's what I had designed the business to do. And you can do the same thing. So the women that are building toward $1 million right now, you don't need to be more productive. If you're sitting around that 750, 800 mark, 650, you're up there, you're in those high sixes, you do not need to be more productive. Stop trying to time block your schedule. Stop reading Atomic Habits. Stop trying to improve your time management. These are not the answers to your, solution of working less. They do not work at this level, right? You are on a different playing field. You need to become strategically unnecessary in the daily execution. And time blocking, time management, and reading Atomic Habits is not going to help you in the scale transition. Just saying it. Okay? So if you're between 750 and 1.5 million in business and you think that you are in this scale transition, I want you to comment scale. Let's have a chat and talk about where you are. What are the major things that are keeping you in the daily operations? I'm going to ask you 2 questions to identify that very quickly. No hard sell, no pressure, no, huge conversation, just 2 questions. And then based on those 2 questions, if you want to get on the phone and learn about what it would be like to get yourself out of the daily operations and finally integrate your dream lifestyle into your current lifestyle, then we can talk about that. So comment scale if you want to have that conversation in the DMs. And then if you want to take it further based upon the 2 questions I'm going to ask you, then we can chat about that. So I hope today opened your eyes to where you are in the growth phase, the growth to scale transition phase, or if you're in the scale phase, you're living your most epic life, your business is printing money, and you're not required in the daily operations. Maybe you're working like I was 16 hours a week and things are just like dandy and you are dancing around in its rainbows and unicorns. Then that's amazing. I would love to know that too. Comment unicorn. I would love to know, right? But I can tell you that most women are not in the unicorn phase, right? Yet you are in the scale transition phase, and I can quickly help you get out of it and get to the point where you want to be, where, remember, this is where you are, revenue goes up and your hours are going down. The dependency on you is going opposite ways. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. I will see you next week. And if you have any questions, pop them in the comments, comment scale. Let's have a conversation in the DMs. If you want to take it further, we will get on a call. Happy Wednesday.